I really can't fit garlic into the sermon. And she's not wrong, it smells bad. It smells bad. Last Sunday, we had All Saints. And it's quite literally one of my favorite worship experiences because we get to say the names of all the people that have passed away in the congregation. And I look at the spots where they sat, and I remember their presence, and I can feel them with us every single weekend, that they're still here. And then I start thinking about all the saints of my life that have gone before. And I remember when I was 25, my mother passed away, and we're in the hospital, and the doctor comes out to tell us that she died. And at that moment, I just felt like this rush of energy or something spiritual happened. And it was like she was with me in that moment. I can't explain it, but it was very real to me. And every time I do a funeral, I'm mindful of that feeling and what others may be feeling, and how every once in a while we'll turn around and maybe you'll see a loved one, an image of a loved one, maybe even in the mirror, in your children and your family members. It's like they're always with us, in this most beautiful, beautiful way. I had a seminary professor that gave me this amazing image that has stayed with me since then, about the communion of saints. It's like just a crowd of people all crammed together, and they're so intertwined and touching that there's just movement between them, and they're supporting us. Like we're like on top of them, like walking on top of them, like they're just with us at all times. They're in, with, and under, and through us all the time. These spirits, these saints, this communion of them, they're always with us. It's like we're walking on top of them. And so every time I do a funeral, I usually add this line in there. If you've been to any of the funerals where I've shared the sermon, it's, and now our loved one has gone on to join the communion of saints on whose shoulders we now stand. It's just this beautiful image of those that have gone before us. They're here. They're with us. They're a part of who we are. We also, at funeral services, at the part where we're going out to the gravesite, we have this thing called the committal, and we usually read our Old Testament lesson there, the lesson from Job. And I know in the one that we heard here, it said, "I know that my vindicator lives," but we're all used to hearing an older version of that. "I know that my Redeemer lives." And I have to bring that up because the choir's going to sing it in a second. So I know that my Redeemer lives, and at last I shall see his face. Job understood that he was going to someplace else, that something was calling him. He had a terrible life. He had constant calamity. He had all kinds of problems that beset him. And the idea of a vindicator is he was really looking for justice, but he couldn't provide that justice. But he knew God was going to provide that justice, and there was going to come a time where he was going to meet God. He didn't know how it was going to happen. He just knew it was going to happen. And now we know that he only saw that mirror dimly, and that we can really see the truth behind that what he's talking about is that Jesus Christ, life, death, and resurrection, provides this beautiful avenue for us to join this communion of saints on whose shoulders we now stand. And I bring all this up because this is talk about the afterlife, talk about the resurrection. And today in our gospel lesson, the Sadducees are trying to trap Jesus with conversation about the resurrection. And before we jump into that, let's just make sure we're all aware of where we are in the story, that Jesus is on his way to the cross. He's about to have that last meal with his closest friends, and he's going into the temple and he's teaching, and then he goes out to the Mount of Olives and he sits, and he goes into the temple to teach, and he's going out to the Mount of Olives to sit, and this happens multiple times. And as Jesus is in the temple teaching, he's constantly being challenged by the temple leaders, namely the Pharisees. And the Pharisees are always challenging him because he's breaking with their law. He's breaking with their tradition. He's doing things that they don't want him to do. He's stepping on their toes, and they're losing their power and their places of privilege and all of their stuff. And they want him to stop, so much that they're going to plot to kill him. But there's another group that's there that's watching. And this is the only time that they're mentioned in the Gospel of Luke, and these are the Sadducees. And the Sadducees did not like the Pharisees. The Pharisees were more common people that were raised up to be temple leaders and stuff, but they used the whole of the Old Testament, from the Torah to all the prophets and all the letters and the post-exilic writings. They would listen to the words of Job and to Jonah, and they would teach and preach these things. The Sadducees were an elite group of people that were very wealthy, and they were the temple take-care-ofers. They took care of the temple, for lack of a better term. They looked at only the first 5 books of the Bible, the Torah. Anything other than that, they did not consider it. It was not part of their education, and they considered it false. And these people would only adhere to that. So in other words, in the first 5 books is where you learn about how the temple is to be cared for and built. But there's no mention of angels. There's no mention of heaven or hell. There's no mention of resurrection in the Torah. So if it's not in that book, they do not believe it. And so they challenge Jesus with this concept of resurrection. And before I go into this, it's pretty clear that they're really doing this on purpose, right? I mean, it's almost like a political debate. You know, they're trying to goat him into making a mistake so they can trap him. They don't even believe in the resurrection, and they're going to question about the resurrection. And let's be honest, this happens all the time, right? We see it with politics all the time, where you have somebody saying something, or a political ad, or even a debate going back and forth, just so the other person will trip up and they can be like, aha, I've got you, and they're going to gain power, or they're going to gain a vote, or they're going to gain something from it, more attention, more likes, more tweets, whatever. But it's not just in politics either, is it? I mean, you can see this in your own homes. Parents do this to children all the time, right? I mean, we do things to make them admit something that they've done, but spouses do it to each other. Don't look at your spouse right now. It's okay. You know, but you do it to coworkers. You do it to neighbors. We do it all the time. It's like a natural response that we have because we don't want to be wrong. And we don't want our belief system to be wrong. We want to be right. We want to be correct. And the Sadducees are right there with us. And so they look at Jesus and they say, you know, Moses, he says that if a man dies and married to a woman, that she's supposed to marry his brother. Well, let's just say that there were 7 brothers, and each of these brothers died, and then finally the woman dies, which has me questioning, who's this lady, right? I mean... Who is she going to be with in the resurrection? Who is she going to be with in the resurrection, Jesus? If you believe in the resurrection, who is she going to be with? And instead of throwing them down and putting them in their place, he thinks about where they're coming from, the logic that they're coming from, their understanding of the Torah. And he basically says, look, marriage is for today. It's for the people right now. It's for here. And he also knew that when Moses talked about this and explained this concept, it was to protect this woman. Because if all of a sudden the man dies, she has no income, no support system, no structure, nothing around her. That yes, a brother is to marry her, to take her in, so that way she has somebody to care for her. So this was done out of this beautiful way of taking care of each other. And he says, but in the afterlife, in the resurrection, we're all angels. We're all children of God. There's no marriage. There's no being given in marriage. They're all equal. What a gift, right? That we're all equal in that space, in the resurrection that is to come. We're all children of the resurrection. And then he says, and don't you remember Moses? When that bush was on fire, the voice that came out said, I am the God of Abraham. I'm the God of Jacob. I'm the God of Isaac. I am not I was. I am. They're with me. They're alive. I'm not the God of the dead. I'm the God of the living. Jesus could have easily have put them in their place. He could have easily attacked back and tried to trap them. That's what we would have done, I believe. But he doesn't. He points back to God. Time and time again, the Pharisees and the Sadducees are trying to prevent Jesus from doing things, saying things, proving things, whatever. And every time, it's almost as if he's like, come, join, be a part of this. This resurrection is for you. It's not just for certain, this is for you. You're a part of this. But he also points out, too, that if all they're after is the long robe, and if all they're after is that seat of honor, and if all that they're after is that privileged place, or the latest Jeep, or the newest iPhone, or the biggest house, or the large bank account, if that's all that they're after, then that's probably what they'll have, and then they have their reward. But there's something greater than all that stuff, and it's living with this knowledge and the ability to be a part of that resurrection, knowing that my life is taken care of, that all this stuff, It just doesn't matter anything if it stands in the way of me treating you as a child of God too. And how often does that get in the way? It gets in the way a lot. Because I turn into a Sadducee time and time again because I don't want to be wrong. And I want to make sure I've secured my salvation like I have the ability to do that. Christ did that for us 2,000 years ago. It's been taken care of. How are we going to live in light of it? Because the time will come when we will leave this space and we'll return to our Redeemer and we'll see this beautiful face. And it's at that point in time that we'll look back and realize that all of the stuff, all of the opinions, all of the tweets, all of the banter, the rhetoric, all that stuff, it just doesn't matter. What matters is that God has saved us, that we're children of this resurrection, and the day will come and we'll join that communion of saints on whose shoulders we now stand. Amen.